All right, let's dive in. Today we're tackling Surah Al-Adiyat, and it's a fascinating
Oh,
one.
absolutely.
We've got some great sources exploring the meaning, the historical context, even the spiritual benefits. I think our listeners are going to be surprised by just how much there is to unpack here.
Yeah, for such a short chapter, it really packs a punch. And right off the bat, we run into this intriguing debate. Where was this surah even revealed, Mecca or Medina?
Yeah, I was reading about that, and it seems like scholars are kind of split on this one.
They are, and it's not just an academic detail, it really impacts how we understand the surah's whole message.
So what clues are scholars using to try and pinpoint this surah's location?
Well, there are some stylistic hints that point towards Mecca.
Okay.
Like the verses are short, punchy, they really grab your attention.
I can see that.
And they use these powerful oaths, which is something we see a lot in early Meccan revelations.
Right.
Plus, there's a strong focus on the afterlife, which also aligns with the themes we see in many Meccan chapters.
Okay, so that's the case for Mecca. But you say there's a debate, so what evidence supports the Medina theory?
The content of the oaths themselves is where things get interesting.
How so?
Well, some scholars think these oaths specifically connect to the concept of jihad, the struggle in the path of God.
Interesting.
And there's even a narration that directly ties this surah to a specific battle, the Battle of Dat al-Salasil, which definitely took place in Medina.
Okay, so now we're talking about literal war horses. Because that would make a lot more sense if this was revealed in Medina, right?
Right.
After Muslims were engaged in military conflicts.
It's not quite that simple.
Oh.
Because even if we interpret those chargers in the surah as camels, which some scholars argue for,
Right.
the fact that they might be carrying pilgrims between the sacred sites during Hajj still leans towards Medina.
Because those rituals, the Hajj, all that, only became formalized after the migration to Medina.
Precisely.
Okay, I'm following. So where do you land on this whole Mecca-Medina debate? Don't leave me hanging.
Well, looking at the evidence, particularly that connection to the Battle of Dat al-Salasil and the emphasis on jihad, I'd probably lean towards Medina. But honestly, what I love about Quranic interpretation is that there's room for different viewpoints. It's not about finding one right answer, it's about wrestling with the text and finding meaning within it.
Yeah, I love that. So we've got this whole historical mystery surrounding Surah Al-Adiyat. But let's get to the heart of it. What does it actually say? What are the big themes it's grappling with?
Imagine holding a mirror up to human nature. On one side, you see all our flaws, the ingratitude, the stinginess, this insatiable desire for worldly things.
Okay.
On the other side, there's the divine power of Allah, capable of scattering graves and revealing every hidden secret on the Day of Judgment. This surah basically throws this contrast in our faces, reminding us to check our priorities.
Whoa. Okay, that is intense. It sounds like a serious wake-up call about what really matters.
It is.
Now, before we get into the actual verses, I've heard there's this concept of virtues associated with reciting certain surahs. What's the deal with that? And what's special about Surah Al-Adiyat in that regard?
You're right. There are these narrations, we call them hadith, from the Prophet Muhammad and his family, that talk about the benefits of reciting certain parts of the Quran. For Surah Al-Adiyat, there's a hadith where the Prophet says that whoever recites it will receive 10 good deeds for each person who is present at Muzdalifah during Hajj and witnessed Sham.
Hold up. Quick context check for our listeners. Muzdalifah is one of the stops during Hajj, right?
Yes.
And GM refers to that massive gathering of pilgrims there.
Exactly. It's this powerful symbol of unity and devotion. So to have your reward multiplied by that number of people.
That's a lot of good deeds.
It really emphasizes just how blessed reciting this surah is believed to be.
Okay, that is pretty mind-blowing. It definitely makes you realize these words carry a weight beyond just their literal meaning. Are there any other hadith about Surah Al-Adiyat we should know about?
There's a beautiful one from Imam Jafar ibn Muhammad al-Sadiq, a descendant of the Prophet, stating that whoever frequently recites Surah Al-Adiyat will be resurrected on the Day of Judgment alongside Amir al-Mu'minin, a title often used for Ali ibn Abi Talib.
Oh, Ali. He's going to come up later when we talk about the Battle of Dat al-Salasil, right?
Yes, he will.
I've also heard some narrations say that Surah Al-Adiyat is basically equivalent to HLF, the Quran.
Yeah, you're right. Some do say that. But it's important to understand these virtues, they aren't just about reciting the words like a robot. It's about absorbing their meaning, letting them change your heart, and then actually living by them.
So actions speak louder than words, basically.
Yeah. But the words are a good starting point.
Absolutely. Okay, we've set the stage pretty well, I think. We've got a surah shrouded in mystery, tackling these big questions about human nature and our purpose. It even comes with some serious spiritual weight attached to it. Now, let's get into the nitty-gritty, the verses themselves. Surah Al-Adiyat kicks off with these super intense oaths, and I'm dying to know what they're all about.
All right, get ready for some vivid imagery. Close your eyes, picture this. The pounding of hooves, snorting steeds, sparks flying in the darkness.
I'm listening.
That's the scene the surah paints as it begins.
Okay, I'm hooked already. And here's where it gets really interesting, right? Because these chargers, they could be interpreted in a few different ways.
Absolutely. Some scholars think they're literal war horses, charging into battle with this unstoppable energy. Others see them as camels, carrying pilgrims on their sacred journey.
Okay. So how do we even begin to make sense of all these different interpretations?
Let's break it down. The first 5 verses, they're all about describing these chargers in detail. Their panting breaths, the sparks they strike, their dawn raids, those massive dust clouds they kick up, and finally, their arrival right in the heart of a gathering. Each of those descriptions, they can apply to both horses and day camels.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this works. The Surah isn't just trying to tell us one specific thing. It's using these multi-layered images to make us think on a whole other level.
Exactly.
Now, earlier you mentioned something about Ibn Abbas and his interpretation. Fill me in on that.
Ibn Abbas. He was a companion of the Prophet and a walking encyclopedia when it came to the Quran. At first, he thought the chargers were definitely horses. Makes sense, right?
Yeah.
But then he had this conversation with Ali ibn Abi Talib, remember him?
Right.
Ali pointed out that in the early battles, Muslims didn't actually have that many horses. He suggested those chargers might actually be the camels carrying pilgrims between Arafat, Muzdalifah, and Mina during Hajj.
Oh, interesting. So Ali's perspective adds a whole new layer to the imagery, grounding it in that context of the Hajj pilgrimage. It seems like the surah intentionally uses language that's open to multiple meanings, letting each reader, or in our case, listener, connect with it in their own way.
Exactly. And that's a hallmark of the Quran. It invites us to engage with it, not just passively absorb it.
I love that. Okay, so let's break it down even further. Let's look at those key words describing the chargers. The very first word, adiyat. What does that mean?
It literally means those that run swiftly.
So it sets the scene immediately, right? Movement, energy, urgency.
Right from the start.
And then there's that word snorting, which just
yeah.
creates such a vivid picture in your mind. I can almost hear those chargers breathing heavily, pushing themselves to the limit.
It's so descriptive.
And then we have al-Muriyat, which means...
It means striking sparks of fire.
Ooh, I like that.
This could be the literal sparks from horses' hooves hitting stones, or even camels scattering them with their hooves.
See, this is what I love, how even individual words carry so much weight and symbolism.
Absolutely.
We've got iraya, which means igniting a fire, doubling down on that spark imagery, and then there's kav. What's that all about?
Qad refers to the act of striking stones or other materials together to create fire.
What's next in this epic description of the chargers?
We've got al-Muhirat, which means rushing to raid at dawn.
Okay.
Whether as warriors launching a surprise attack or pilgrims embarking on a crucial stage of their journey, this phrase is all about urgency and purpose.
And that sense of momentum just keeps building, right? With atharna, meaning raising clouds of dust. I could almost feel the ground trembling under those powerful hooves, or the dust swirling around those camels as they move in a massive caravan.
It's powerful imagery.
And then we get to naka, which refers to the dust itself, but you said it gets interesting here.
It does. The root meaning of naka actually has to do with being immersed in water.
Really?
So the surah is drawing this parallel between being enveloped in dust and being submerged in water, maybe hinting at how all-encompassing the movement of these chargers is.
Whoa, I would never have caught that connection. It just shows how much depth there is in every single word. Okay, so we had all these individual descriptions, and now we reach the climax, penetrating into the midst of the gathering. What does that signify?
Imagine warriors breaking through enemy lines in battle, or think of pilgrims entering the heart of Mina, where they perform the stoning ritual.
Right.
Either way, it conveys that sense of arrival, of reaching a pivotal moment.
Okay, so after 5 verses of this intense imagery and layers upon layers of meaning, what's the takeaway? What's the surah trying to tell us with all this talk about chargers?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And one we'll delve into even further as we continue our deep dive. Right after those powerful oaths, it kind of throws us a curveball, a stark truth about human nature.
Ingratitude, right. Verse 6 hits us right between the eyes. Indeed, man is ungrateful to his Lord.
Yeah, it's blunt, isn't it? And it's not talking about some abstract concept of ingratitude. It's emphasizing that this is something we're all witness to, both in ourselves and in the world around us.
And it uses that word canoed, right, to describe this ungratefulness, which is way more serious than just forgetting to say thank you.
Absolutely. Canoed implies something deeper, something ingrained. It's about being oblivious to the blessings we have, taking them for granted, or even worse.
Like what? Denying them altogether?
Exactly. Refusing to acknowledge them, misusing them, or neglecting our responsibilities to others and to Allah.
Hmm. But when it says humankind is ungrateful, does that mean everyone? Aren't there exceptions? Good people who are thankful.
You bring up a good point, and the Sutta does acknowledge that later on, but this statement, this declaration, it served as a powerful reminder, a wake-up call for all of us.
So it's like, even if we think we're grateful, we should still be aware of this tendency we all have, this potential for ingratitude.
Yes, because we can easily slip into that mindset of focusing on what we lack instead of what we've been given.
Verse 7 really drives that point home. And indeed, he himself is a witness to that. It's like the Sutta is forcing us to look in the mirror, confront our own flaws. Do we actually recognize how blessed we are?
Exactly. It's a call for some serious self-reflection. How often do we take things for granted? How often do we fail to appreciate the gifts we've been given? These are uncomfortable questions, but the Sutta isn't letting us off easy.
And then verse 8 adds another layer to this examination of human nature. It says, and indeed he is vehement in the love of wealth. So now we've got ingratitude and dematerialism in the spotlight. Is there a connection between these two flaws?
That's a great question. I think it's safe to say they're intertwined. This isn't just about having wealth. It's about that unhealthy attachment to it, the way it can consume our thoughts and actions. And that excessive love of wealth, it often stems from a lack of gratitude for what we already have. We're so busy chasing more that we forget to appreciate the present moment.
So could we say that ingratitude is like the root and materialism is the fruit that grows from it?
That's a brilliant analogy, and it ties back beautifully to that imagery of the chargers we discussed earlier. If those chargers represent our desires, then these verses suggest that unchecked desires can lead us down a pretty dangerous path. Just like a wild horse can cause chaos and destruction, our unrestrained longing for wealth can lead us further and further away from our true purpose.
It's a sobering thought. It's like the Sutta is warning us that our passions, while powerful, potentially positive, need to be guided, directed towards something higher than just accumulating more stuff.
Precisely. And that's where the next section of the surah comes in. Verses 9 through 11 shift the focus to the ultimate reality check, the day of judgment. This is where things get really real.
Verse 9 paints a pretty intense picture. Does he not know when whatever is in the graves is scattered? It's not exactly subtle, is it?
No, it's not. It's meant to shake us out of our complacency. It's a stark reminder of our mortality, that this life is temporary and that we'll all stand before our Creator. That imagery of graves being scattered, it evokes a sense of upheaval, of everything being turned upside down, no hiding, no escaping.
And then verse 10 adds another layer of intensity, and what is in the breasts is obtained. So not only are our physical bodies resurrected, but even our innermost thoughts and secrets are exposed.
Nothing remains hidden on that day. Our intentions, our motives, everything we tried to bury deep down, it's all laid bare before Allah.
It's a powerful reminder of accountability, isn't it? It's not just about what we do, but also about who we are on the inside.
Absolutely. And verse 11 drives that point home. Indeed, their Lord is well aware of them on that day. It's a statement of fact, a reminder that Allah is all-knowing, all-seeing. There's no escaping His judgment.
So if we connect these verses back to the earlier ones about ingratitude and materialism, it's like the surah saying, hey, you might be caught up in the pursuit of worldly things right now, but don't forget, you'll be held accountable for how you lived your life and what was truly in your heart.
Exactly. It's a powerful call to wake up, to shift our focus from the temporary to the eternal, and to live with that awareness that our actions have consequences both in this life and the next.
But there's still so much to explore, right? Like that question, the one that comes later about the Day of Judgment, it always gives me chills. Does he not know that when whatever is in the graves is scattered, why bring up the Day of Judgment now? What's the connection to all this?
That's an excellent question, and it takes us right to the core of what this sutta is trying to teach us. But before we get there, let's circle back to those oaths for a minute. and see how they tie into this whole idea of kanud.
Okay, yeah, I'm ready to dive deeper.
One way to understand those oaths is that they're highlighting the stark contrast between two kinds of people.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
Yeah.
The dedicated warriors versus those who fall into kanud.
Precisely. The Sutta places those powerful oaths alongside the declaration of human ungratefulness. It's as if it's saying, look at these warriors giving everything they have for their cause. Now look at yourselves, clinging to your desires, forgetting your blessings. Which path are you choosing?
Wow, that's powerful. It's like it's holding up a mirror, making us question our priorities, our level of commitment.
Exactly. And there's another interpretation worth considering. If even animals, in this case, the horses, can play a role in striving for Allah's cause, why can't we do better?
Whoa, that's humbling, to say the least.
It is. We have intellect, free will. Even creatures without those gifts can be instruments of Allah's will. So where does that leave us?
It definitely makes you think about our responsibility, about using our gifts wisely and striving for excellence in our devotion to Allah. This is also thought-provoking. It's like the surah is weaving these different threads together, war horses, oaths, ungratefulness, to create something really profound. But now I'm even more curious about that question about the Day of Judgment. You know, the one that says, does he not know that when whatever is in the graves is scattered? What's the link between that, everything we've been talking about?
Well, that takes us right into the heart of the surah's message.
Okay, lead the way. I'm ready to see how it all unfolds.
So we were talking about that question, that really thought-provoking question about the Day of Judgment.
Right. It's like a reality check. Does he not know that when whatever is in the graves is scattered, it always sends chills down my spine, every single time? It's a pretty powerful reminder that we're not here forever, and that ultimately we're accountable for our actions.
It is. It's like this wake-up call, to remind us that this life has an end. And everything we do, every choice we make, it matters in the grand scheme of things.
And the surah doesn't shy away from the seriousness of that day. It's got this intense imagery, like when whatever is in the graves is scattered and what is within the breasts is obtained. Whoa. It's like everything we try to hide, all our secrets, everything's going to be brought out in the open.
You're right. It paints this picture of complete vulnerability, like standing before our Creator with absolutely nowhere to hide. Everything we've kept secret, everything we thought was hidden, it'll all be revealed.
It's a scary thought. But it also makes me wonder, if Allah already knows everything we've done, even our secret thoughts, why this big reveal on the Day of Judgment? What's the point?
That's a really insightful question, and I think it has to do with how we humans are wired. Sometimes we don't really get it until we see the consequences, until those secrets are out in the open. We might know in our heads that we'll be held accountable, but to experience it, to actually witness our deeds and intentions being revealed, that's a whole other level.
It's true. Like, you can make a mistake, but try to brush it off in your mind. But then when you see the fallout, that's when it hits you. You can't deny it anymore. It becomes real.
Exactly. That's what the Day of Judgment is all about, that ultimate realization. Coming face to face with the truth of who we are and what we've done. And to really drive this point home, the surah uses specific words to paint a vivid picture.
Oh, you mean like the words scattered and obtained? Those are pretty powerful.
Exactly. Scattered, the word in Arabic, it means dispersal, like pulling things out, spreading them around. Imagine the graves being emptied, the dead rising, everything brought forth. There's no escape, no hiding.
No second chances, no do-overs. And what about obtained? There's got to be a reason that specific word was used.
You're right. Obtained, the root of that word in Arabic, it originally meant extracting something's essence, like refining metal or getting the gold out of ore. Then it came to mean a more general kind of extracting, separating. In this context, it's talking about separating the good from the bad within us. Faith from disbelief, good qualities from bad ones, pure intentions from the not-so-good ones.
So it's like our very being, our core, is going to be examined and judgment will be passed based on what's inside, like what's truly in our hearts.
Exactly. And right after this, the surah reminds us, indeed, their Lord on that day is fully acquainted with them. Like, it's emphasizing that Allah knows everything. There's nothing hidden from him.
So it's not just about what we do outwardly, but what's in our hearts. Because Allah sees it all, knows our true intentions.
Absolutely.
Now, I know Surah Al-Adiyat is also connected to a specific historical event, the Battle of Dat al-Salasil. Earlier, we were discussing the possibility of the chargers being literal war horses, so I'm guessing this battle has something to do with that.
You guessed right. The Battle of Dat al-Salasil took place in the 8th year after the Prophet's migration to Medina. Word reached the Prophet that a large enemy force had gathered, threatening the Muslim community. He decided to send Ali ibn Abi Talib, known for his military genius, to lead a preemptive strike against them.
And I've heard Ali's strategy in this battle was pretty brilliant. What did he do?
He used the element of surprise to his advantage. He marched his troops through the night, launching a surprise attack at dawn. The Muslim army, though outnumbered, achieved a decisive victory, capturing prisoners and seizing a substantial amount of spoils of war.
That's incredible. So how does this battle specifically connect to Surah Al-Adiyat? Is that why the surah focuses on chargers and warfare? Is it like a commemoration of that victory?
Some scholars do believe that Surah Al-Adiyat was directly revealed in response to this battle, that the chargers described are the actual horses used by Ali's army. It's certainly a possibility. The timing fits, and the imagery aligns with the events of the battle.
It would make the surah a very powerful tribute to their bravery and swift victory, wouldn't it?
It absolutely would.
And before we wrap up, I want to touch on one more thing. How this surah glorifies jihad. What makes its approach unique?
You know, what really stands out is how the surah elevates even the small parts of jihad. It brings them to a divine level. Swearing by the horse's breath, those sparks, the dust, it's saying that even these seemingly insignificant details matter in the context of striving for Allah. Every effort, every sacrifice, every step we take on this path, no matter how small, it counts in Allah's eyes.
That's a beautiful way to think about it. Like, even the dust we kick up while striving is a testament to our dedication.
Exactly. And the surah also highlights two things that are essential for success in warfare, which are also super important in our spiritual journeys: speed and surprise and preparation. We need to be prepared with knowledge, a connection to Allah, a firm resolve to fight our weaknesses, and we need to act quickly, decisively when faced with temptation or hardship.
It makes me think of Ali, how he prepared his forces at night, prayed at dawn, and then launched an immediate attack. The enemy was completely caught off guard. He really embodies those principles: speed, surprise, and preparation.
He's a perfect example.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Surah Al-Adiyat, what are some key takeaways for our listeners? What do you hope they walk away with today?
Well, I hope they leave with a renewed appreciation for the power and beauty of the Quran, for its ability to speak to us on these multiple levels and guide us on this journey of life. You know, I hope they'll reflect on the surah's message about human nature, the dangers of ingratitude, the pull of materialism, and the importance of living with that awareness of our ultimate accountability.
Yeah, I hope so too. And I also hope they'll be inspired to really engage with the Quran's metaphors and imagery, to let those images spark their own imaginations and lead them to a deeper understanding. Because it's not just about reading the words. It's about letting them penetrate our hearts and transform our lives.
Beautifully said. And perhaps most importantly, I hope they'll remember that central question the surah poses. You know, if those chargers represent our passions and desires, where are they leading us? Towards gratitude and faith, or towards those fleeting pleasures and material possessions that ultimately leave us empty?
That's such a powerful question to sit with.
It is.
It challenges us to really examine our motivations, to make sure our desires are aligned with our values, and to ensure that this journey we're on is leading us towards something truly meaningful. Thank you so much for guiding us through this incredible deep dive. It's been an enlightening experience.
The pleasure was all mine. I always enjoy exploring the depths of the Quran and sharing its wisdom.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this journey of discovery. We hope you found it as enriching as we have. Until next time, keep seeking knowledge, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.